Hello, podcast world. Welcome to Balance Life Mastery, the show where we talk about all things high performance and life balance without the burnout. Stories, insights, and actionable tips on creating the life you deserve, giving you and your teams the unfair competitive advantage in work and personal life.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Balance Life podcast with Dina and I. And this is episode 18. And we're talking about a really fun topic, I think it is, but fun in a really awkward, uncomfortable kind of way. So, always my favorite kind of topic. And it's talking about a combination of a lot of things we've talked about. It's around our comfort zone, and it also touches on the resilience topic that we did a few weeks ago, which is super important. Dina's been doing some amazing content and talking to people about like mindset around performance within like CrossFit and workouts. So we thought it's a really great topic to really dig into today, because we don't do it enough. So it should be a good one.
Comfort zone and making it uncomfortable. And I think that is what I was going to say back to you in terms of that's your style of comfort zone, isn't it? Making it as uncomfortable as possible.
Well, there's the really rubbish saying, well, the sort of one that everyone's heard, like comfort zone's a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So if I give everyone an easy ride, like, what's the point? It's one of the really good things about coaching. Like, it's pushing someone's comfort zone and their barriers, because we'll all sit back, we'll relax, we won't do it. I mean, we talk to a lot of people, and you'll see that they're frustrated in their career and they'll want to do something. And it's always interesting because people are like super interested in how we're getting on. It's like, oh, so you left corporate, like, how's things? Because they almost want to be a little voyeur and like live their like transformational life through you, because they don't want to. And when you kind of sort of say how's things, they're fed up at work, but it's like, oh, but I've got stock, I've got a bonus, I've got healthcare and it's stuff like that. And it's like, but they're comfortable, like, and they're like, oh, the work's all right, it's easy, I know how to do it. And it's those little things that they're not going anywhere though.
No, but you know what, touching on the coaching space comment, I mean, one thing is I'm forever grateful for you trying to push me out of my comfort zone all the time. So it's definitely, I think, a lot of things I wouldn't have even considered. So I mean, getting out of your comfort zone is an element, but also making sure that you've got the right environment, the right surroundings, the right people to back you is another huge thing. And I mean, I like to think of our comfort zones as the warm and cuddly and safe and familiar areas. And it's often very, very hard, just like you said, to find that motivation to leave. But the more we're stuck there, the more opportunities we miss to kind of fully immerse ourselves in life and in human experience and in everything that life has to offer. And I would much rather choose option number 2, which is the human experience. But I think I was always a thrill seeker and I would do new things. But of course I was hit by fear, and I'm always hit by fear, especially when it's the areas that are the riskiest to me. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're here to break down today. Comfort zone, how to get out of comfort zone, how to build the willpower and the mindset to expand your comfort zone, not even step out of it, just expand it a little bit, and then lead a life of growth, learning, success, whatever that might look like for you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of realize how society's changed, and a lot of this is tied to sort of what we talked about with resilience. But I was listening to a great podcast the other day, and then got the book, and they were talking about people's comfort zones, and they kind of said there was this real big step change at the start of the 90s. So kids in the 90s, and this ties very much into kind of millennials, into Gen Zs and things, where what happened is there was some high profile kidnappings. So what happened was, I used to be allowed to go out wherever I want, during the day, be back sort of for dark, have some dinner. And we were very fortunate, lived in the middle of nowhere. We could bike up the hill. My grandparents had a farm. We'd bike 2-3 villages across to go mountain biking in like gravel pits and all this sort of stuff. And there wasn't this worry. But they started to see these high profile kidnappings. And it's not that there's more kidnappings, it's just there was suddenly social media and global TV news channels and this sort of stuff. So parents started saying, you're not going out. Like, you're not going out till you're 16. You can't stay out. You've got to get in the car, right? So you ended up with helicopter parenting, where don't climb trees because you'll break your arm. Although my brother did climb a tree and broke his arm, but and all these things that you shouldn't do. Then what they've said is the next generation came in and they've called it snowplow parenting. So instead of like the idea of helicopter parenting is you grab your child and lift them up when they're in trouble. Snowplow parenting is basically where you run ahead and destroy anything in their path, so they are always perceived as successful. Right. So it's where you see like parents go and complain at teachers to get their scores changed, or actually we were just talking about this. People signing up for competitions and not going in their correct division. So they don't go to their level and push themselves. They go to the easiest possible level. And then it'd be like an international rugby player saying, I'm just going to play at level 7 in my local village and go dominate everyone. Aren't I bloody brilliant? And that generation's come through, and it's stopping people. So when something happens, it's traumatic. Like, you fail an exam, it's absolute end of the world trauma because of this like setup.
100%. Yes, exactly that. And so, I mean, helicopter, I've got quite a funny story of helicopter parenting, but actual practical helicopter parenting. My son and I were skiing a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and he was how old? No, maybe longer than that. He was about 9 or 10, and we were sitting in the lift to go all the way up, and he drops his stick. He drops it as we've taken off from the platform, so there's nothing below us except for white powder. He drops it as I'm pulling down the bar, the rail, to secure us in, and he's like, "Oh, mommy, my stick," and goes after it. And I literally, when you said helicopter parenting, I literally went down, I grabbed his hood, but his hood was button clipped to the rest of his coat. So his hood came out in my hand, and he went and he dropped. It was like a 10-meter drop. And I was like, I think one of the worst fears, obviously, but yeah. And then by the time I got there, I was like, someone go get my son, please. But that was the instant visual of when he said helicopter parenting. So yeah.
Right, just for the avoidance of any doubt of parents listening, right? That's not helicopter parenting. That's fine, right? When your child's about to fall 10 meters, yeah, you can grab them. Don't go, this will be a good life lesson.
Yeah, definitely. It actually was, because he remembered it for the rest of his life. So I guess, but anyway, no. But that was
just... most of that stuff is afterwards. Like, exactly. But don't, yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, so in terms of even looking at a child, even looking at how children learn and the fear that we instill in our kids as parents, or whatever it is that we do, we tend to avoid new experiences or taking on any challenges because we want to avoid the feelings of anxiety, stress, pain, fear, all of these feelings and emotions, because naturally we're wired to avoid these feelings. But that's not, in my personal opinion, a way to live life, because if we're able to build the skill set around dealing with anxiety, uncertainty, fear, then we become moldable, we become adaptable, and that is a much stronger trait to have than never ever wanting change. So do you have an example, Jeremy, in terms of something that you fear?
Speaking in public. Well, that's one that I used to have, and I that used to petrify me, like sticking my hand up, and asking a question or saying something. Yeah, it's horrible.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I think for me, there's definitely a fear of judgment that I have to deal with, or I'm working on, and I think that that's the one thing. But I don't think currently, after a good couple of years of putting in the work, I don't fear change as such. I actually enjoy new challenges, but it's I haven't always been like that. But yeah, I mean, mindset.
Actually,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do. So I'll tell you about the getting over the fear of talking in a sec. But actually, one that I do have is fear of not being good enough at the gym, and that fear that or not wanting to. I don't want to be the slowest. I don't want to be the weakest, and I'm constantly looking around and comparing myself to others. And I know I shouldn't do it, and I still do it, and it does stop me doing certain things. So yeah, it's still there. But yeah, even if you know it's wrong, it's like roller coasters. You know that it's safer on a roller coaster than it is to drive a car, but people still have an irrational fear of roller coasters.
100%, but that comes with age. There must be some sort of age element. I used to be the roller coaster person, but now it's like my son will literally have to drag me on, and I come off. Well, technically, I'm not allowed on roller coasters anymore because of my heart, which is my number one excuse right now. But no, it's done something to me. But anyway, I think when it comes to comfort zone, two of the kind of key elements that I like to explore are mindset and habits. And obviously I always say you're the habit king, and maybe you can touch on this in a second, but in terms of mindset, and we go back to that traditional kind of fixed versus growth mindset, because fixed mindset, when that's what we live by, when that's what guides our thoughts, our actions, we tend to convince ourselves that we don't have necessary skills to accomplish something, right? We put ourselves down, we question our abilities, and that makes us less likely, less motivated to look for opportunities to grow, to learn new skills. And instead we use our existing state as the excuse to stay in our comfort zone, thinking of things like, I can't do that, or I'm not good at that, etc. And that is one of the main kind of mindset shifts that we need to work on. Do you have any habit hacks to kind of test or expand comfort zones?
It's not as much a habit, but it's a kind of a approach that I've seen work really well, and it's one that I use a lot. And it's right. So pretend you're going to the gym and you've got this target of you want to be able to lift 100 kilograms. So you want to bench press 100 kilograms, right? You're not going to walk into the gym and you're going to go bench press 100 kilograms because you'll probably break your throat. You'll crush your throat when you drop the bar. But what you do is you'd start at about 50. You'd work on that a little bit. You'd go up to 60, 70. Like, this is quite a long period of time for people trying to, if they just don't go to the gym. But it's progressive overload. So it's this idea of slowly increasing the weight, but also having rest periods in between it. And it's the same with when you're trying to push your comfort zone. So let's take speaking on stage, for example. So you want to speak on stage, but you're petrified to stick your hand up, but you know that speaking on stage will give you opportunities in this life to progress your career, whatever you want to do, right? So the first thing to do is like, what's the first little thing I can do? Right, I'm going to ask questions in meetings, because then you're speaking in meetings to a group of people, you're exposing yourself, you're learning to talk. After that, maybe it's you asked to run some presentations. So you're going that little next step higher. Then you maybe want to do a team talk, and then you want to do a little talk, and then you want to go to Gartner and stand in front of 2,000 people, right? But at each stage, what you're doing is you're taking a little step outside your comfort zone. You're testing it. You're then coming back into your comfort zone, because you should never spend all time in stress, because that'll burn you out. So the whole stress plus rest equals growth, that equation can pretty much go across this whole podcast series. So you want to do that. You then So then the next step was when you wanted to do a little mini presentation. You've now got in your head of, oh, I spoke up in these meetings and nothing bad happened. And then the next one, you're going to do the presentation and you're like, do you know what? I did the little presentation here. And it's adding these mental I have done's and nothing bad happened. And that's the key to it. It's like the little, again, marginal gains. It's all about like these little steps over time towards that goal. And it doesn't actually, an important thing here is it doesn't have to be directly related. And I'll tell you a story in a minute, but it doesn't have to be a direct crossover. You know, if it's you want to speak on stage, it could be becoming a coach of your kids' football team, because it's all around communicating, standing in front of people, confidence, work, like all that sort of stuff. So
exactly, 100%. And it's also surrounding yourself with those opportunities to see these, to become more familiar with it. So I worked with one of my business coaches at the beginning. He used to he came from I don't want to say, I don't know what the PC way to say this is, but he came from a less privileged background. And when he did really well in his company, his dream car was a Porsche Cayenne, right? So right or wrong or whatever. And he used to get so intimidated at the thought of even walking into the Porsche store, shop, showroom shop, store. Let's go in and buy. And that used to be so far out of his comfort zone. And something that he always said in his story is he would walk back and forth in front of the showroom just to become more familiar, to see the types of people that walked in and did this, to see what they did, how they carried themselves, all of these things. So it's about surrounding yourself with kind of the right environment and observing the right people. And I think one of the key things, and this is something someone asked me about yesterday, and I did a whole series of stories on Instagram on in terms of negative thinking and how to snap out of it. Nothing is a switch. It does not happen overnight. It is progressive overload. It is a gradual process of consistent good stress that you continue to build on, just like you said. So it's jumping too far out all of a sudden can actually hinder the process and shift us back way down into the center of our comfort zone if we don't do it in the right way. So I think that is one of the main things to accept before we even try, is that the gradual process and the progressive overload process of it. So when it comes to, what are your biggest tips when it comes to getting like a process to follow? Let's say day to day, what are your top tips?
So if I use an example, so like when I had this sort of fear of public speaking, kind of knew that I needed to get over it. This was while I was still in corporate, knew that I wanted to start a business, knew that it was going to involve lots of like putting myself out there. So at an event, I stuck my hand up, kind of told a little bit of my story about anxiety, and that kind of helped because I exposed myself in a really safe group of people to something, and then kind of realized, do you know what, people are right with that. Like no one like ridiculed me, nothing like that. So I had a little bit of armor in. What I then started doing was creating posts about it. So stuff on LinkedIn, Facebook, things like that. So I was putting a bit of a message out there, and everyone knows social media, like if you type something, it's almost like it's not real. It's like it's why the trolls love to troll people, because it doesn't feel like they're in your face. I then moved on to doing recorded videos. So it was a bit more talking about it, but I still had this safety net of a buffer, like it was not live. Then I moved to doing Facebook Lives. Now, the really cool thing about Facebook Lives, and I would recommend everyone does Facebook Lives, because the skills that it gives you are phenomenal. But because you learn to talk succinctly without many notes. You learn that people will interact. So like someone may they may say hello. And that's like in a presentation where someone puts you off, like someone coughs, someone like this, or the slides don't work. And all these things that started to build up, like Monty ran into a bird while I was on a Facebook Live once, and I dealt with that. And suddenly I realized I can deal with this stuff. So then I've done talks on stage. I did, but a really good example actually is I did a talk for a HR community, and the slides wouldn't load. They kept coming up, glitching, and then dropping because it was like this online platform. And I basically knew my slides, so I just talked for 30 minutes. But a lot of people would have said, I can't do this without my slides. I'm not doing it, kind of shut down. But I think because I'd gone on this journey of like progressively testing myself, stretching myself, that's where I found that real absolute drive. So it's taking those steps, being really structured about it, realizing that stuff's going to transfer across, like Facebook Live transfers to podcasting, for example. I never could have talked so openly like this or so casually. As people probably realize, we don't have any notes for this. Without that experience and that confidence that you can kind of riff, and that's incredibly important. But I think one thing to remember is it aligns to my values and it aligns to my ultimate goals, because you can't put yourself into a hole to do something you don't want to do if you don't have a value at the end of it that you're aspiring for. So whether that's like, there's no point going to the gym if you don't want to lose weight, build muscle. Like, you've got to have some goal for going to the gym. I believe more than it allows me to eat cake on a Friday. Like, some people do it and it's a very negative mindset and they get really pissed off with the gym. But yeah, have that bigger value, have that bigger goal, draw the path, work out what's stopping you get there, because usually it's that glass ceiling of discomfort that you're gonna have to smash your head through. So networking is horrific, but you won't get promoted in your job without networking, whether it's inside the company, outside the company. People don't want to do it and then they can't work out why they don't get progressing. Like, I hate networking, but I do it now.
I guess we have to do it. I'm the same. It's like someone said to me the other day, Dina, you're such an extrovert and you can talk to anyone and blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. And then I have to go kind of sit in fetal position on my couch for the rest of the day to recoup, to re-energize, because it's a weird one. Like, I am a social creature. I really am, but I also need time alone. And it's, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You know what? One of the and I'll share my kind of, I think, 4 things that you might know by now. I like numbers and that's the way things stick in my head. Yeah, one of the kind of key things that I'll always tell people, because it's so widely knowledgeable and people, it's so easily accessible in terms of information, we see it everywhere around us, is start with a fitness challenge. Right? Whatever that might be, start with a fitness challenge, something that you want it, whether it's steps, whether it's running, whether it's lifting weights, because it is so widely available, it doesn't make it alien to go through that process. So that is something, whereas, for example, starting your own business, you may have 90% of the people around you are like, what the hell are you thinking? Stop being daft, get back to work in the 9 to 5, right? Whereas fitness is much more socially acceptable and people do it around us all the time. So that, I think, is one of the things, is think of that fitness challenge that you can see through till the end. And then the second thing is always tie it to a reason. What is your deep reason why you are doing something? And again, like you said, Jeremy, in terms of values, what is that giving you? It's not just, we can't just rely on motivation, because one day you will wake up in the process and be like, I really don't feel like doing this. And that's going to sound amazing on the podcast, that noise. but yeah, and we can't rely on motivation. So what is the driving force behind that? And then yeah, so down to kind of the key things that I'll think of is, do one thing that you've always wanted to do. We all have bucket lists that we tend to kind of add things to and never tick off, or maybe we tick off the easy things, whether it's learning how to play an instrument, learning a new language, running a marathon, whatever that is. Go do one thing that you've always wanted to do. And then the second thing is focus on a fitness challenge, just because of how accepted it is around us. Then the third thing is change up your routine, and it's the baby steps and the changes that we make, whether it's, for example, if people want to start waking up earlier, right? That's not gonna happen overnight. It's going to be difficult at first, but when we change up a routine and we get out of the comfort zone, the autopilot, it makes us think a little bit differently. It starts to rewire our brain a little bit differently. And then we stop feeling that slump of lack of motivation. So a big one, for example, in COVID, or not even COVID, but now that a lot of people are working from home, is they get bored and they can't find themselves able to focus or get work done at home because they're always in the same spot. Whereas in the office, you'd have conversations, you'd go out for lunch. So what can you do to change up your routine? One example is go work from a cafe, whatever that might be. And again, that it's just that something to shake up the norm that does something in terms of how we visualize, how we view, how we perceive things around us. And I think my last one is probably choose a fear and face it every single day. One fear, something that really, really, and it doesn't have to be massive, just one fear of, for example, I was terrified, and I still am, of insects. I have this, I cannot, like, I will be the one standing on the couch with my feet up and screaming at anyone to get a spider, right? So I knew that was being silly and I needed to stop it. So when I moved out of London, because I don't know whether it was wilderness or whatever, I had a lot more spiders in the house. And I chose to sit with them in the room. And I wouldn't kill them because that's something like, I don't like killing insects, but I would sit with them and observe them and watch them for hours until they disappeared. But I would sit with them. And guess what? Now I can sit with a spider in the room. I would not have a panic attack. Whereas before, I absolutely had a panic attack if there was a spider on the wall behind me. So again, tiniest fears. I went on a rant there, but yeah, tiniest fears, pick one. And that's basically it. The gradual habit will build as the days go on. So
I've got a really good one to try. It just made me think about that when you said about the little fears, right? Every person you walk past, smile at them. This is an amazing thing. Like, I do it and I get so many strange looks on the school run because, like, my kids will say, "Oh, do you know them?" And I'm like, "No." And it's just smiling at people and making eye contact or saying morning or nodding. Or it's amazing how many people drop their heads and don't because they don't want to engage. And actually, I find it really empowering. And there's something in it as well about when you then have to talk to people where you're used to it. You do it all the time. So I always sort of get my kids to sort of try and make eye contact, do it like tiny little
I love
hacks.
that. I love that 100%. And there is something, and again, it's people think other people walking past, if they don't make eye contact or whatever, they're rude. And it's not rudeness, it's their own insecurities. But that's beautiful. Yes, it put a smile on my face. And I'm gonna do that because I'm gonna do that today, actually. I will smile at people. But yeah.
You're super brave, do it on the but I'm not sure I feel about that one.
in terms of the benefits of leaving our comfort zone, and this is, again, why do we do things? There always needs to be a reason why we do things, but there are three key things. And this has been, they've been hot topics for us in terms of people asking us, how do I build resilience, right? How do I get better in terms of self-awareness and our internal kind of personal growth and capabilities? How do I boost self-confidence? All of these things. How do I not live with regrets? How do I lessen the regrets? All of these things can be done by strategically challenging and expanding your comfort zone. You will 100%, I mean, the boost in confidence when you are able to do something that you think you cannot at this point is phenomenal. And I think that in itself is reason enough to challenge ourselves every day.
Spot on. Just to kind of finish with a quote, and I really like this one. So that, by the way, that eye contact thing, I think that was from Tim Ferriss's book, 4-Hour Workweek. I think it is. I read a lot of books, but Tim's got a really good quote, which is, a person's success in life can usually be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations he or she is willing to have. And I really like that, because if you think about it, you don't get promoted without asking your manager for a promotion, right? There'll be that person that you really want to work with, that if you don't have that conversation to say you want to work with them, you never will. Like the client that you really want to land, if you don't tell them how much it costs, they can never say yes or no. Like all these different things. And when you start to think about it, it is like you want to ask someone out on their first date. My God, that's one of the most uncomfortable, scary conversations you can have. But if you don't ask it, it won't happen. So I just love that quote. It's like as soon as there's like I don't want to, but it's something you do want, like go do it. Like,
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
100%. You know what? And this is a personal story. And I'm still trying to, and maybe you can actually live get me to realize what my learnings are here. I got massively rejected talking about dating, and it hit my confidence massively, and it hit my ego more than anything massively. But again, I'm desperately trying to find what I've learned. But it was for the first time in my entire life that I actually approached someone, for my entire life. And that has always been, and now I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Like, it's part of the game. And now I actually see it, like, and I'm so proud of myself for doing it. And as painful as that response is, I know I'm 10 times bigger and better for being able to do it. So
I don't think you really need my help, but what you got to remember is, if you ask someone and they say no, right, you have an answer. You're not going to live with regret, and you're not going to kind of question, oh, imagine if I'd like married my childhood sweetheart that I never told that I loved them or whatever, right? You're going to live with so much regret rather than just doing it. And again, if you say to your boss, I think I deserve a promotion, and they say, no, you're not ready yet because this and this. Brilliant. You've just been told the 3 things you need to work on. Like the upsides to these things of an uncomfortable conversation are massive. Or you might turn around and say, do you know what? That's completely unrealistic. I'm going to go look for another job. Rather than hanging out at that job for the next 2 years, wondering what you needed to do to get promoted, which was unrealistic, and there's more junior people earning more money in a different company. Like reframe everything from what's the worst that can happen to what's the best that can happen, and what can I learn from this situation.
100%, and thank you for that, because that's helped me. You see, I'm always like, I hope I can help you as much as you help me, Jeremy, but that's what we're business partners for. So yeah,
I think I shut down when you tried to pull me apart a few weeks back, but maybe I'll come more open to a discussion. But yeah,
cool. All right, well, we hope that you challenge yourself every day, starting today. Think of that one thing and let us know what that might be, and let us help you on that journey. We've got a few worksheets and a few examples in terms of how to explore certain things. Always get in touch, ask us for them. We'd happily share them. But until next time, have a great week.
See you soon. Bye. Thank you very much for listening. If you like the episode, please subscribe, share it with a friend or a colleague, and leave us a review on whichever podcast platform you're using. We read them all, and it really helps us get the insights and the guidance on where to take the program forward. And also connect with us on social media. Share your journey with us for your high-performing and balanced life. And lastly, remember to take the BalanceQ scorecard. The link will be in the show notes. And BalanceQ or BQ is your balance quotient. It's your ability to live this high-performing and balanced life, both in your personal and professional career. And when you take the scorecard, you get actionable insights, you get the steps that you can take to really take yourself on this journey. So with that, we thank you very much for listening and look forward to you listening on a future episode, and have an amazing day.